About a week ago was March 1st, also known as Hamiljar. In Korea, it is a national holiday that commemorates the wave of civilian protest movement that was sparked on March 1st, 1919. Encouraged by President Woodrow Wilson's talk of the 14 points, which included the right of national self-determination, Koreans sought to make their desperate desire for freedom be heard around the world, though at last they would discover that Wilson's words were not applicable to the imperialist friends of the Allies, which Japan was at the time. And though their cries for liberty were answered by the brutality of the Japanese occupiers, resulting in thousands of deaths, the March 1st movement established the seeds of an independent Korean government and solidified the people's will in not only retaining their Korean identity, but actively resisting the Japanese. There were people who carried out their resistance with gunpowder and metal, like Yoon Bong-gil, who in 1932 threw a thermos bomb onto the stage at a rally honoring the birthday of Emperor Hirohito in Hongkou Park, Shanghai. His actions resulted in numerous casualties among the Japanese colonial and military leadership, which deeply impressed the Allied leaders and eventually led to the issue of Korea's independence being raised during the Cairo Conference between the Allies in 1943. There were also soldiers like Kim Ja-jin, who led the Independence Army through various battles against the Japanese, including their famous victory at Cheongsan-ri. There were activists like Yu Gan-sun, who at the age of 17 rallied her fellow students as a youth leader for the March 1st movement and perished under torture by the Japanese while imprisoned. But not all Koreans fought for independence under the Japanese occupation with force. For one certain individual, that fight was running. So I'd like to introduce you to the greatest sporting hero of Korean history, Sohn Kee-chung. Sohn Kee-chung was born on August 29th, 1912, in Siniju, right on the border with China during the Japanese occupation. Like many Koreans, he was born to extreme poverty, but there was one thing that he really loved, and that was running. Whenever he would have time off, he'd run for fun. And through his homeroom teacher's suggestion in elementary school, he became a track and field athlete from a young age. Through his youth, he built his career as a top runner. He ran the Tokyo Marathon in 1935 and won with 2 hours, 26 minutes, and 42 seconds, becoming the first person in the world to break the 2-hour, 30-minute wall. He would continue to rise, winning 10 out of 13 marathons until the Berlin Olympics in 1936. The Japanese obviously wanted to send Japanese athletes, not Koreans. But they realized that there was nobody else other than Sohn Kee-chung, as well as his fellow runner, Nam Seung-ryong. They were the clear front runners, and no other Japanese runner could even come close. The Japanese authorities did try to unseat the two Koreans from their Olympic spots by picking two Japanese runners to beat them during the tryouts, but the Japanese runners, even after cheating by taking a shortcut, could not beat the two at all. And there's this story of how Nam Seung-ryong, who had witnessed the Japanese taking a shortcut during the run, slapped one of them in the face for being such shameless cheaters. So they were picked to go to the Berlin Olympics under the Japanese flag. And you can see in the bottom left, Sohn Kee-chung running at the head of the pack. Sohn Kee-chung won the gold with 2 hours, 29 minutes, and 19 seconds, a new Olympic record at the time. Nam Seung-ryong would also take the bronze. The one other Japanese athlete who was in the team couldn't finish because of a blister. But as they stood on that podium, they were not triumphant. They were in grief because they could not represent their own people. They had to wear the Japanese flag on their chest. And you could see here Sohn Kee-chung with his Olympic oak tree that he received as a gold medalist, hiding the Japanese flag on his chest. Nam Seung-ryong would later recall how he was envious of Son's gold medal just because of the fact that he was able to hide that shameful flag. And this was their quiet resistance, their silent protest to refuse to be Japanese, to refuse to give his occupiers a victory. In a postcard that Sohn Kee-chung sent to a friend immediately after the Olympics, he wrote, "I am sad." And for his conducts at the Olympics, the Japanese treated Sohn Kee-chung very poorly. He came under heavy surveillance, His comings and goings were controlled by the police. But make no mistake, this was a win for the Korean people. You have no idea how inspiring this was for all Koreans. He was a hero for them, reminded everyone of their identity, their pride, their sense of humanity as Koreans when Korean culture and language were being wiped out systematically by the Japanese colonizers. This was the fight that he gave for Koreans. His fight gave Koreans the courage to hold on to their cultural identity, their heritage. After Korea gained independence in 1945, Sohn Kee-chung dedicated his life to Korean athletics, coaching future champions like Seo who won the 1947 Boston Marathon. And just as a side note, Nam Seung-yong was also part of the coaching staff, and he ran as a pacemaker for Seo, finally wearing that Korean flag proudly on his chest. And in a moment of mythical historic parallel, Sohn Kee-chung watched Hwang Young-jo at the 1992 Barcelona Olympic Marathon, winning the gold on August 9th, the same day that Sohn Kee-chung won his own Olympic gold. And what was even more legendary about this was that silver was Japan. So Sohn Kee-chung saw the Korean flag rise above the Japanese flag that day. And I cannot imagine what kind of emotion he must have felt that day watching that. And how fortunate it was that he was able to experience all of that, to be vindicated, to see his dreams come true, to see his country rise from the scars of its past before he passed away in 2002. And despite having never held a gun or a bomb, I believe that Sohn Kee-chung was one of the greatest independence fighters of Korea, for it is without a doubt that his indomitable spirit was an inspiration for countless Koreans to never give up. I have particular affection for Sohn Kee-chung, not just because I'm a lifelong runner, but because of how relatable he is. Most of us are not fighters, the kind that throw bombs, shoot bullets, and face off against violence. I've always wondered, what could I give in times of strife and struggle if not that kind of resistance? I mean, most of us want to fight if push comes to shove, right? But let's be honest, only a few of us are truly fit for fighting with violence. And I think Sohn Kee-chung's story presents how all of us have a role to play in such a situation, because it was his indomitable spirit, his excellence, that inspired countless Koreans to never give up. And it is my deepest pleasure to now have told you all about Sohn Kee-chung. Thank you for watching.